All right, so verse 18. Again, we're back in book of Mark, chapter 2. We're at verse 18. And this is some good stuff tonight. All right, so here we go. Verse 18. And the disciples of John and of the Pharisees used to fast. And they come and say unto him, talking about Jesus. So, why do the disciples of John, talking about John the Baptist, John the Baptist, who is now in prison, why do the disciples of John the Baptist and of the Pharisees, why do they fast? But your disciples that are following you, talking about, again, they're talking to Jesus, and they're asking him, why do the disciples of John and of the Pharisees, they fast? Why do they fast? But your disciples fast not. Now, again, this should be made clear for a second. And any ordinance or ritual given in the Bible, such as fasting, must never be looked at as like a, how can you say, like holy within itself, but rather it's what it represents. We'll get into that a little later. Okay, so verse 19, and Jesus said unto them, can the children of the bride chamber fast while the bridegroom is with them? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. Jesus is the bridegroom. Verse 20, but the days will come when the bridegroom shall be taken away from them. Now, this took place after the ascension, after what was done at the cross, after he rose up. Okay. Verse 20, but the days will come when the bridegroom shall be taken away from them, and then shall they fast in those days. So in other words, while Jesus is with them, while he's here with them right now, they don't have to fast because Jesus is right here with them. But when Jesus is gone, when he goes to be at the right hand of God, the Father, that's when they shall be fasting. But as long as he's right here, they're okay. Now, again, while fasting helps believers in many ways. Again, we'll get into this a little later, but just to kind of point out fasting, one of the greatest ways that fasting helps the believer is what it represents and what it symbolizes. It basically says that things aren't right, and they will not be right, or will not be made right, until Jesus comes back. So fasting is at least, or in part, is a plea for him, Jesus, to come back quickly. Okay, verse 21. No man also sews a piece of new cloth on an old garment, else the new piece that filled it up takes away from the old, and the rent is made worse. Now, understand, the new cloth symbolizes the new covenant. Let me say this again. No man also sews a piece of new cloth on an old garment, else the new piece that filled it up takes away from the old, and the rent is made worse. So the new cloth symbolizes the new covenant which Christ would bring. It would not be part of the old covenant. So the new cloth is the new covenant that Jesus brought in when he gave his life for us at the cross, and then 3 days later rose again. And he has the believer covered under the new covenant instead of the old covenant, which was given to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, so forth and so on. So the old covenant being done away, trying to mix the two just does not work. It would not work. And as Jesus states, Jesus states, will not work. Instead, it'll make it worse. So, okay, so verse 22, and no man puts new wine into old bottles, else the new wine does burst the bottles, and the wine is spilled, and the bottles will be it says marred or broken. It'll bust it. But new wine must be put into new bottles. This is the same principle basically as the new cloth. This is just giving it into perspective in a different way. If you put new wine in an old lambskin or wineskin, the wineskin would break and it wouldn't hold the new wine. So you'd have to get a new wineskin. Here it says bottle, but original King James talking about the wineskin. You put the new wine into new wineskin, it would hold it. It wouldn't bust out and leak and get everywhere. Anyway, so verse 23, and it came to pass that he, talking about Jesus, went through the cornfields on the Sabbath day, and his disciples began as they went to pluck the ears of corn. So this should probably have been translated into barley or wheat fields, because there was no corn in the Middle East or Europe during that time. So, but in other words, I mean, to get into it, we're not here to get into it and be like, oh, is it corn? Is it wheat? Is it barley? Is it fruit or whatever? No, still. So verse 23, here we go. And it comes to pass that he, talking about Jesus, went through the cornfields, or the wheat fields or what have you, on the Sabbath day, and his disciples began as they went to pluck the ears of corn. So they're walking through this field of food, wheat, corn, whatever, and the disciples are picking at it. They're picking at it to eat. And the Pharisees said unto him, and in the Greek, they were bugging Jesus about this matter that his disciples was plucking on. They were taking the food from the field on the Sabbath day, which was a big deal in the traditional ways back in those times. So, and Jesus said, the Pharisees said unto Jesus, they said, behold, why do they, talking about the disciples, on the Sabbath day that which is not lawful? And they were claiming that the disciples were breaking the law of Moses by basically plucking, like I said, plucking and eating the grain on the Sabbath day. This is in reference to, if you want to check me on it, Deuteronomy chapter 23, verses 24 and 25 says otherwise about this matter. And he said unto them, now Jesus could have taken them to Deuteronomy, the book of Deuteronomy in the Old Testament, but instead he took them to 1 Samuel chapter 21. He would basically check them in their own game. Have you never read what David did when he had need and was hungry? He and they who were with him? Question mark. Jesus is showing them the the futility of religion and ceremony when there was no change of the heart on the matter. So, again, Jesus is still speaking. Have you never read what David did when he had need and was hungry? He and they who were with him. How he went into the house of God in the days of Abiathar, the high priest, and did eat the shewbread, which is not lawful to eat, but for the priests, and gave also to them which were with him. Now David was not a priest, so by law he could not eat those special loaves of bread that was in the tabernacle. However, David he judged wisely. That a positive law forbidding the laity to eat this bread, which it did, ought to yield to a law of necessity and of nature, which it did. So David and people that was with him, they were in need, they were in hunger or whatnot. They saw the bread there. They're like, look, it's not lawful, but we're starving, need to eat. So again, you can go look that up in First Samuel chapter 21. Okay, so verse 27 here. And he said unto them, this is again, we're talking about Jesus, said unto them, the Sabbath was made for man. Hear me out on this one. Jesus said unto them, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Man was not made for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath day was made for man. Because the Sabbath day was a day of rest. It was meant to point to the spiritual rest, which would come in Christ. So verse 28, therefore the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. Let's say that again. Therefore the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. This statement right here, Jesus is saying, I'm the Messiah. I am Lord on the Sabbath day. I'm the Lord of the Sabbath. I am the Messiah. And these religious leaders, they Okay. Chapter 3.